Coast to coast, border to border, and around the world, it's time for The Bill Alexander Show. The Bill Alexander Show is a guest-driven program where the topics are diverse and entertaining. Laugh and learn while you listen to one of the best hours of online radio. Now, here's your host, Bill Alexander.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Bill Alexander Show with your truly William Eric Alexander. All my friends call me Bill, and welcome to the Bill Alexander Show today. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of tourism, and we're going to be talking to someone in Virginia, but we're going to start with the big debate. Now, all of you guys up here up north with me, we call it Appalachia. However, down south, they call it something really odd, which is Appalachia. Or Appalachian. Yeah, there we go. I knew I would get confused because I have to think about it. Any idea why there's two different pronunciations of the same word?
You know, I've heard different theories on this. And, one of my biggest theories on it personally is that different groups of people settled the region, the Appalachian region, and even in Appalachian. So even in this small area of Virginia, we have very different dialects from one town to the other. So I think different people came into the region. Maybe those different dialects were trapped into the different areas, different pockets around the region. And, I had an uncle who would talk about, going to carry water. And he would say, I need a vessel to go carry water. It's like, that's straight King's English that has been trapped into these mountains for all those years.
Because where I'm at, I'm just southeast of the city of Pittsburgh. And we have our own language up here, which is called Pittsburghese, where we have taken some of the words that we've heard, and I think you're right, way people settled. Instead of saying you, we say yins. Instead of saying wash, we say wash. So there are these words that we've picked up too. And it's interesting that it's because of the mountain range that is going through this very large area. Right. So it's kind of fun to talk about it. And when I saw you were available to speak to me today, I was going through it going, okay, so what is different between the Pennsylvania Appalachia and Virginia Appalachian when you talk about what's going on there? Other than the
pronunciation.
Yeah. So what do you have going on down there? Because I know your weather's a little bit warmer than ours is at this time of year. However, we're having an unusual heat spell that we've been in the mid 70s for the last 2 days, which is very unusual for us.
Right. So we are actually probably in the 70s today as well. We're a little cooler just because we are here in the Appalachian Mountain Range. So that keeps us a little bit cooler. In fact, it's a very temperate climate. I'll quote a local attorney who's also a very avid trail builder and outdoorsman. And he says that, we have the perfect scenario here. We really don't get the natural disasters. We don't get the hurricanes. We don't get the tornadoes. We don't get the earthquakes. We're almost trapped here in an area that is the ultimate climate. And we have 4 seasons, 4 very distinct seasons. And of course, we're just kind of getting out of fall. I don't know how far along you all are, but we're about 2 weeks past peak.
Okay, and so we are about the same.
Okay.
I have a tree in my yard right now that's a magnolia tree that the leaves do not fall until the week of Veterans Day, except they fell yesterday, and it's like now I have to do this work earlier. But our fall seems to be 1 week advanced compared to what it has been in the past. Right. So I don't know if it is the way the cycle's going or what, but I've seen that. I was down in Virginia a few weeks ago and noticing your peak season. Now I did not go to where you're located. I went to Williamsburg and that area. So how far away from you? Because most people think of Virginia, they think of Williamsburg, they think of Richmond, they think of Virginia Beach. Where are you located in that area?
So Heart of Appalachia is a regional tourism organization, and we represent the 7 westernmost counties in the state of Virginia. So we go all the way from the tip of Virginia that borders with Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And we go up to I-77 at Tazewell County. So we cover 7 counties. It's a big region. From I-77 to the very tip of Virginia at Lee County is probably still close to 4 hours to drive.
Okay.
So most people, that you talk about when you start talking about Southwest Virginia, they start talking about Roanoke.
Oh, okay.
We are a good 2 or 3 hours, past Roanoke.
So with tourism being a big thing down there like it is up there, what historical sites do you have in the heart of Appalachia?
Interestingly, I'm sitting on one of them right now. My husband and his family, their farm he's 8th generation.
Okay.
And this farm was founded in 1774. So think 2 years before the Constitution.
Right.
Yeah. And my in-laws house here was built in 1850. And all the brick in it was fired here on the farm. You could actually see the changes in colors of the brick on the house, I guess, where they went from season to season, or maybe moved into an area with different clay. But it's very interesting to see that. And as far as history, my father-in-law is just forever finding things in the house that are just amazing. But the farm has weathered, several wars, and it's changed its focus over the years. There's been tobacco, there's been sheep, and now it's commercial beef cattle. But, it's really a testament to a business that can stay afloat that long and really adapt with the ever-changing environment around it, and still be, a flourishing business. But as far as other, more public historical sites in the region, there's a lot of museums that pay homage to the coal mining history.
Okay.
The Pocahontas exhibition mine in Tazewell County is one in particular that's very interesting, because it was a coal mine that was in operation in the early 1900s, and now you can go through it and take a tour. So you can actually go underground and see what the coal miners actually experienced. And one thing that I learned the last time I was in there that had never crossed my mind is that there's actually fog underground. So they open the doors to the mine that morning, and this mist starts rolling out. And it's like, I never knew that it could get foggy underground.
So what's interesting is where I'm at, and I'm on the Pennsylvania, West Virginia border.
Right.
And our area is also big with coal mines. And that was the major employment here at the beginning of the 1900s, all the way up until the mid to late 70s, then when the market fell apart. Right. And we still have people working in the mines. We have mines that are being very successfully mined, but ours actually started to make a transition to Marcellus shale and Marcellus gas. So in your area, are you still mining the mines? Are they doing anything else with them? Or
there are still mines that are active. One thing that we have seen in this area is one particular power plant is able to burn gob coal, which is the refuse coal from the days gone by that was just discarded and piled up and left behind as waste. And now they're actually able to go in and clean up those sites and burn that waste coal. So really, when you think about it from an environmental standpoint, yeah, we are, burning coal at the power plant, but we're also really cleaning up the waste that was left from before. And I think that is a trend we're seeing in this area, is that, this extraction economy of the past has really taken a turn, and often it is the sons and daughters of the coal miners that have taken the lead on these projects, to really turn the economy more into a tourism-based, outdoor recreation-based economy. We have elk that have been reintroduced into Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And one of the gentlemen who actually oversees a lot of that, he's the son of a coal miner. And the elk were reintroduced onto an old strip mining site. And it's absolutely beautiful. When you go up there, you think you're just in a different country because, of course, it was stripped in the past and the mountaintop was removed. But that has created those open fields that have been a perfect habitat for the elk.
Right. Now, if I come down to see you, am I going to see elk?
You are. So if you take a tour through the Breaks Interstate Park, there's 100% success rates on their tours.
Because I've been to Elk County in Pennsylvania. They named the county after the elk. I saw no elk. I was there for 4 days. I saw a bear and a raccoon. That was it.
Oh yeah, the Breaks Interstate Park does tours in the spring during calving season, which is really cool because you get to see the baby elk. And then during the fall, during the rutting season, when the males are bugling and fighting, and it's just really a beautiful thing. But yeah, they have 100% success rate on their elk tours.
So you were mentioning the tourism down there. What are the outdoor activities that you guys offer there? Because I've seen some pictures and I can only imagine what outdoor activities that you have available.
We have such a diverse amount of outdoor activities. I was on a podcast last night talking about Back of the Dragon, which is a state designated motorcycle and sports car route. It traverses 3 mountain ranges. It's 438 curves over 32 miles.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
It is wildly popular with the motorcycle riders and the sports car enthusiasts. One of the main attractions that we have is called Spearhead Trails. And it is the off-roading version. It's the, think the big side-by-sides, the Polaris Razors.
Right.
And we have several 100 miles of off-road ATV trails. We also have, campgrounds that have popped up on these reclaimed mine sites. We have the Clinch River, which is the most biodiverse river in the United States. And they have several outfitters on the Clinch that can get you on the river on either kayaks or tubes. And just a huge range of activities. Like I said, the elk tours at the Breaks Interstate Park. And we have 2 parks. One is the Cumberland Gap National Historic Park and the Natural Tunnel State Park. They both do wild cave tours at certain times of the year.
Cumberland Gap. I've actually been there.
Have you?
Yes. And I'm looking for something. And there was actually a mine. There was a community there at one time that my wife and I and my daughter explored.
Right.
That was down through there. I can't remember the name of it, but and it was really interesting because you could see the days gone by, and I guess it was someone from England that came in and opened their own mine down there. And it was really cool to be able to watch that.
Right.
And then coming out on top and then looking at the beautiful side of the gap and the bridge and all that other stuff. It was just amazing.
Oh yeah.
And if you've never seen it, that is a trip. And from our area, it's a day trip, basically. I mean, you can go down, stay the night, and then come back again and really enjoy it, because this is part of the area. I think we're so familiar with tourism that like Williamsburg, we're familiar with Virginia Beach, we're familiar with Outer Banks, and you talk about these big tourist areas, but we don't appreciate what you have, because that's not that they're smaller, but they are quieter, more family oriented. It's not as busy. And I think that's where we need to start looking at when you start having these types of situations. So again, I think with Cumberland Gap, it's just amazing. It really is.
Well, I saw someone post on a Facebook group a few days ago that they had hiked the Sand Cave Trail, which is over near the Cumberland Gap Wilderness Road area. And they were just talking about how phenomenal it was that they had the trail all to themselves, pretty much the entire time. So, people who are really wanting to get out and get into nature and really have that experience, aside from and my husband and I have done some of the national parks. We went to Arches National Park last year, and it was absolutely amazing. And I took some pictures that you post on Instagram, and it looks like you're out there by yourself.
Right.
But then I took a video to send to my friends, and it's like, this is what it's really like. And it looked like spring break.
Oh, wow.
It was super crowded. So just about anywhere here that you go, whether it be a hike or a river float, whatever it may be, you're pretty much just going to be in solitude.
I'm looking at your brochure that you have online. I find it interesting because, of course, something jumped out at me because in my area, we have the same thing. And it is the the red-capped Paul Bunyan statue that holds a fish, a paint bucket, and even a jack-o'-lantern. We have one here. It's the same guy, and with his hand that's open like that, he's holding a tire.
Right.
It's just like really interesting. And again, that's along US Route 58.
Route 58.
Do you have other oddities like that people come to look at?
We do. One thing that Virginia Tourism does as a state tourism organization, they do of course, everybody's heard that Virginia is for lovers.
Right.
So all over the state, you'll find these very unique, they call them love works, but basically it's a photo op beside, with a big sign that says love, but different localities and different businesses have their own take on these. So one thing that people really like to do is a tour of those love signs. But yeah, the Paul Bunyan statue. We also have our own version of Bigfoot. I don't know if you all have a Bigfoot.
Yes, we do.
We have a Bigfoot, but he is called the Wood Booger, and he resides in Norton, Virginia. And if you go up on the High Knob Recreation Area just outside of Norton, you'll find a massive statue of the Wood Booger.
Okay.
Yeah, up at Flag Rock Recreation Area in Norton. But yeah, that's and also, of course, at the back of the Dragon, they have a welcome center, the motorcycle route, and they have this massive dragon statue, and he's a huge photo op as well.
So it's interesting because as soon as you said that, I looked up Wood Booger, and it brings up the Wood Booger Grill, and I'm thinking, I don't know if that's a place I'm going to eat, but anyhow,
they do a great burger.
And I guess they have cutouts where you can stand there and you can look like Bigfoot. So it looks like a lot of fun.
Norton really celebrates their Wood Booger. They embrace him.
Why do they call it the Wood Booger?
I really do not know. You'll have to Google that one because I don't know the answer.
Because we call ours is Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Oh, yeah. So again, it's one of those things. So the food that is there, what type of dining, restaurants, specialties that you have there?
It's very diverse. There are a lot of the little mom and pop diners. There's still a couple of drive-ins that have been here since the 50s, where you can just drive in and they'll bring out a hot dog or a burger or a shake. We've had several. There's one town in particular here in the region, Big Stone Gap. I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie. Ashley Judd, Whoopi Goldberg, they were all in this movie titled Big Stone Gap. And
no, I haven't.
It is about, it's kind of centered around the State Outdoor Theater of Virginia, which is the Lonesome Pine Outdoor Drama. So Big Stone Gap is a small town of, I'm going to say 5,000 to 6,000 people. And, but they have 31 restaurants. It's like the coolest thing to go into this small town. And they all work together. You have this coal-fired pizza place that pays homage to the coal history. Mm-hmm. They use coal in this, normally it would be wood-fired, but this one's coal-fired. And they use a lot of the regional beers, and we have a distillery in the region. And then you go down the street and there's Big Cherry Brewing Company that, they've sourced beer from all over the United States, and they do a great burger, and they have like a limited menu, kind of a pub menu, and they all just work really well to complement each other and not overlap. So it's really in this region and in the Appalachian region as a whole, Big Stone Gap really is a town who's doing it right. They recently had the Blue Highway Fest, which was a huge bluegrass music festival. They had an amazing lineup, and we had people from all over the US, Canada, and this was a first annual event. So we're really looking forward to the next event because we think it's only going to get bigger.
Right. I'm also looking at the brochure, and it shows me some of the beautiful nature shots of the waterfalls, the caves, and all that. Where do you find those at? Do you find them throughout the Heart of Appalachia, or are they in one location? Okay, you find them throughout. Yeah,
you find them throughout the region. There's actually one close to me here in Russell County. It's called Tank Hollow Falls, and it's about 60 feet high. It's a very, very photogenic waterfall. And the beauty of it is it's accessible for anyone. It's handicap accessible.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, people can drive right up and park, and then there's a wheelchair accessible trail that goes over to the waterfall. And Little Stony Falls, which is over in Scott County, you can access it in a quarter-mile trail, or you can come in from a different route and just get in a really good hike of several miles. But yeah, the waterfalls in the region really are very popular and very photogenic.
Because you look at it, and up here in this area, we have an area very similar to that. It's called Ohio Pile, and it's a state park.
I have been there.
You have? Well, you've been in the same, you're in the same county I'm sitting in right now. That is amazing. Did you do whitewater rafting, or did you just do?
I tell you what I did. I rode the Great Allegheny Passage from Cumberland, Maryland to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cumberland is not that far from here either. So you did the passage.
I did.
Did you get off at all? I mean,
I did. I made it kind of a several day trip. I would, ride as far as I wanted to, and then I would stop and stay somewhere. But yeah, riding into Pittsburgh, and then I stayed a couple of nights in Pittsburgh. It was a lot of fun. And we have down here, we have the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is very similar to that. But the Creeper Trail is close to 70 miles. But it is also a rail trail that has been converted.
I'll be darned. That's interesting. Did you make it to Falling Water up here?
I don't think I went to Falling Water. That's like the smoking hole.
No, it's a house designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. It is amazing architecture that he made for a wealthy Pittsburgh family in the 1930s. And I know it very well because when I was much younger, I was actually a tour guide there many years ago. So again, there's a lot of cool history up here. We have Fort Necessity, where Washington stayed. We had Braddock's Grave. We have our own caverns, which are Laurel Caverns, and we have this whole area. And mine, because the Laurel Highlands is also a very large area, and I'm very familiar with where I'm at. But it covers Somerset, Westmoreland, Fayette, and there's one more, and I can't remember what it is. But anyhow, but again, that's really cool that you've been up here to experience what we have to offer. Right. Yeah. So you've done the rail to trails up here from Cumberland to Pittsburgh. So have you done yours down there?
I have. I did it out and back several years ago. So 70 miles total, roughly, with a group of friends. We were doing it for a Cancer Outreach Foundation fundraiser. And that was one of the toughest physical things I have ever done in my life. I think my bike was a little undersized, and yeah, it was not good, but it was a lot of fun. It's good bragging rights to say that I've done that.
So here, and I know what has happened because of the rails to trails up here, is we've noticed these small communities along the trails have opened up beds and breakfasts, restaurants, and stuff like that. So like you said, you can pull off, you can stay, you can make a day of it, whatever. Do you have the similar things down there with yours?
I said when I rode the Great Allegheny Passage that it was like the Creeper Trail, but it was still in its infancy, because I'm not sure that at the time, and this was several years ago, I'm not sure that at the time that the locals had really embraced the Gap Trail. And the Creeper Trail has been around a lot longer. So around it, there's been restaurants pop up, bike shuttle companies, just tons of them. And they just stay busy all the time, shuttling people from one end of the trail to the other. It has done a lot for the region. And a friend of mine, Berkeley Young, he does studies on different regions for tourism purposes. And he did a study for the town of Abingdon, which is where the Creeper Trail starts. And, the Abingdon has always embraced the Barter Theater, which is Virginia State Theater. It was founded, don't know when, but the original concept of it was that people would come in and barter like eggs or milk or whatever from their farm to see a play. So, and you can still do that today if you bring in something. I believe you can still barter to see a show. But, the town of Abingdon had always really embraced the Barter Theater. And in Berkeley's study, he realized that, if you bring people in for the Creeper Trail, they will go to the barter when they finish riding the trail and things like that. but the people who specifically come in for the barter don't necessarily go out and experience
Right.
the other things. So, you know, his saying is the creepers will barter, but the barters won't creeper. And so he suggested to the town of Abing that they actually market the creeper trail more, because that's bringing in people who will then diversify and do the
Right.
other things. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I know that the people that come through here, and I've heard stories about them staying in that, and the bike shops that have opened up in the area and stuff like that. So it's very interesting, because it sounds very similar. What you have had down there,
Mhm.
we're now developing up here.
Oh yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah,
So
I remember when I did it, there was one poor little guy in his SUV with a bike rack on the back of it. And he was the only person that I could find that would shuttle me at that time. And
oh
he ran
really?
me all over the place. Yeah.
Okay.
So he would drop me off at, you know, like he picked me up in Pittsburgh and brought me back to my vehicle.
Uh-huh.
And it's like he's a man ahead of his time, because he sees what's coming here.
Right. Exactly. So through that area and other things, how long is your tourism season? I mean, do you have a defined tourism season, or is it 12 months?
I would say it gets a little slower during the winter, just because, you know, motorcycles are a huge part of our tourism industry here, just because we have those gorgeous curvy back roads.
Right.
That the motorcycle riders from Ohio and Florida and all of the flatlands love, but, you know, they're not riding in the winter. So I was actually at Back of the Dragon yesterday, and I asked them how things were going, and she said, you know, it's kind of dropped off for the season. We do have several things like, you know, holiday events that really bring in people. The Natural Tunnel State Park does a lighting of the tunnel several times between now and Christmas, where they'll light the tunnel up at night, and they have music and bonfires and s'mores and all those things. People really enjoy that. But yeah, as far as, you know, sometimes just like getting away in some of the cabins that we have, things like that. But yeah, overall, it's not a year-round thing. So
Okay.
during the winter, we find that people are usually they're planning their travel.
Okay.
So we then start doing trade shows as an organization, and we'll do like motorcycle trade shows, we'll do outdoor trade shows, and you know, we go set up in Atlanta and DC and Chicago. We're going to Baltimore this year, so we hit all of that during the planning phases.
So, okay, my question is, where do you think most of your clientele comes from to go to your area?
I'm a Google Analytics junkie.
Okay.
So I spend time each day digging into Google Analytics to see where our people are coming from, so I can answer. I don't have to think. I can tell you.
Okay.
They're coming from New York City. They're coming from Atlanta. They're coming from Chicago. They're coming from Nashville, and they're coming from Ohio mostly.
So it's kind of interesting to hear that where your areas are coming from, because especially from New York and Ohio, they're willing to make the drive.
Right.
Which is how many hours? What, 5-6 hours, somewhere like that?
Yeah, it would be 5 or 6 hours. And really the most surprising one to me is Chicago.
Oh yeah, that would be.
And some of the riders, you know, and this is, you know, motorcycle riders, we do get a lot of motorcycle riders from Pennsylvania.
Right.
But one thing that we started working on was to partner with, there's a group in Ohio called the Windy Nine. And it's nine different motorcycle routes. Many people think it's the Windy Nine. It's the Windy Nine. And so we were talking about partnering with them to get people halfway down and say, hey, go ride these routes, you know, for a few days, and then come on down to us. And that way they're not doing that whole drive, you know, 10 to 12 hours from Chicago in one stretch.
Right.
You know, it gives them. So we talked about partnering with them and almost doing like a joint publication to tie the two routes together.
So if I'm coming down for something, say, we'll say late spring, early summer, and I only have a few days to do it. Where would you recommend me going to get the best experience that I possibly can from that area, from your area?
It really depends on what your interests are. If you're interested in getting out on the back roads and getting that feel of the open road on a motorcycle, there are several places that rent the Polaris Razors, or not Polaris Razors, but the slingshots. If you know what I'm talking about, they look like Batman cars.
Yes,
two wheels
yes,
on the
yes.
front, one on the back. you can actually rent those and take them out. And my husband and I rented one this past summer because I needed to get some photos and video footage from it. And I'm driving it on back of the Dragon, having a great time. And then I realized I'm suddenly respected by motorcycle riders. They give me the little wave, it's like they're giving me the wave. And so you can rent those, and it really is a lot of fun. It's a whole different feeling being out there in that open vehicle. And then you can also rent, I mentioned the Polaris Razors a minute ago, which are the big side-by-sides.
Side-by-sides, yeah.
Yeah, and you can rent those and take them out on the trails. And if you're just interested in getting out in nature, I would highly recommend the Breaks Interstate Park and maybe their elk tours during the spring.
Okay. Have you noticed, and I know it's hard to probably gauge this right now, but have you noticed an increase of people coming from larger cities after the whole COVID pandemic situation that we were in?
We definitely have. We've noticed an increase in that, not only in visitation, but in people actually relocating here.
I was going to ask you that next.
So the people who own the coal-fired pizza place that I was referring to in Big Stone Gap, they actually were on a road trip, just kind of meandering around the country with no real, plan, or, they were just out sightseeing. They stop in Big Stone Gap. They have they do a mac and cheese pizza that's just phenomenal. They have this mac and cheese pizza. They start talking to the owner of the business, who told them that she was thinking about selling. And a week later, they've picked up and moved to Big Stone Gap and bought this restaurant.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And that town in particular, the town manager is from Macon, Georgia. The restaurant owners are from California. There's a guy who owns a bike shop who does, e-bike rentals and things like that. He's from California. And during the Blue Highway Fest, I was working the information tent. So I was kind of talking to the people and finding out where they were from and, where they were staying and all those things. And I had one guy come through and he's like, oh, I missed most of the festival today because I was with a real estate agent. He's like, I got here in this town and I didn't want to leave. So he didn't leave. He bought a house and he's already closed on it and he's already living here. Yeah. So it's really good to see that kind of new blood come in, because I think they do bring a lot of revitalization to the areas that may be stagnant.
Right. Yeah, because I was just wondering if you were noticing the increase of people coming in and maybe as a second career or after retirement or whatever it may be, if you've noticed that.
We have noticed that, but it's not just retirees anymore. I think it used to be more retirees, but I think now we're starting to see more young professionals, maybe who have children that they don't really want to raise in the city. They want them to experience that slower pace of life.
Right.
Yeah. And really spend more time with them in the outdoors. And this is a great place for that.
I think it's interesting that we're noticing this shift, that everybody was moving to large metropolitan areas. And now we're noticing everybody moving back into what we call the country and moving in the rural areas and taking in, because as you said, it's much simpler. It's more wide open, and you can raise a family in an area like this and actually feel good about it.
You can. And I was joking yesterday, I've raised 2 kids. They're 19 and 21. And, small town, you pretty much know everyone. And my son got his driver's license when he was 16. And like 2 days later, the chief deputy of the sheriff's office, like, I just passed your son, somewhere. And it's like, what was he doing there? But, it's just like, everything they're doing.
Right. You may like that, but the kids don't. Yeah.
The kids did not like that at all.
Which is good though, because people are keeping an eye on them. And I think that's very important, especially today, because when I grew up north of the city of Pittsburgh. That's the way life was.
Oh yeah.
And we were in a very rural area and everything else. Now where I'm at now, which is south, and I relocated down here, that it's the same thing. And you notice everybody knows everybody.
Oh yeah.
You see everybody when you go to the grocery store, whatever it may be. Oh yeah. And you never get out of the store quick because you're always talking to somebody.
No.
So again, it's very interesting to do that. Now, you also have a section in your brochure, which I think would be very interesting, is that you have a specialty dealing with weddings.
Yes, we have a lot of great wedding venues here. Everything from barns, I mean, just very, very, very fancy barns to, there's one hotel, the Inn at Wise, which is a historic hotel. They have a wedding area and the ability to host a reception, and a lot of people now are opting to just get married outdoors and then
Right.
maybe have a reception somewhere at a venue. And that's actually what my husband and I did. We got married here on the farm, on a kind of a mountaintop overlooking the farm. And we had about 40 or 50 people up on the mountain at the wedding. But then we had a big reception of about 150, down here in the yard under a tent. And one of my friends is getting married soon, and she's looking at wedding venues, and she's talking about just doing, just a beautiful kind of a lakeside ceremony and then renting a venue for a reception. So those options are there here as well. You can have a beautiful overlook at the breaks. You can have, there's just so many options if you get creative.
Now, what is it the Litzit Antebellum Mansion?
The Litz Antebellum Mansion. Yes.
It looks beautiful. What is the historical background of that?
I don't know a lot about the history of it. That would be a question for my father-in-law, because
Oh, really? Okay.
He was acquainted with that family back in the day. But it is currently owned by Back of the Dragon, the corporation who owns the road, or who doesn't own the road, but who markets the road.
Right.
And you can actually rent rooms, or you can rent the entire mansion and have a wedding, or you can just rent a room and stay there for the night, kind of like a bed and breakfast. But it is absolutely gorgeous. And there's another wedding venue coming online, and it's just outside the town of Lebanon, Virginia. It's not as big as the Litz Mansion, not quite as big and grand, but it's a very historic home. It has a cabin on the back of it that dates to the 1700s. There's rumors that Patrick Henry owned the land at one point in time.
Oh, okay.
And it has been built on over the years, and the gentleman who owns it now, he's completely remodeled it, and he's also completely remodeling another home that's on the property. It's on a large farm, and that will be the bridal suite, and the house that he's remodeled will be a great place for getting ready. And then he's doing like a barn. He's revamping a barn to be like an indoor type of reception area. And, I think people will find that the cost in a lot of these cases of these wedding venues in this region may not be quite the cost that they're seeing like in, Charlotte or Atlanta or wherever they may be. So you really get that beautiful experience, but you might not have to pay quite so much for it. And just like real estate in this area, it is still affordable.
So I have a really bad sweet tooth. And I go through your site and I see a photo, and I go to their Facebook page of Mini Cake Company.
Okay.
That is in St. Paul, Virginia.
Yes.
Their stuff looks amazing.
Oh yeah. They have a great location. We have a lot of good dessert places in the area, and I have a sweet tooth as well. So you're speaking my language. I was in the Kit Kats earlier, but yeah. So there's also another lady who does these honey cakes with homemade honey ice cream. And oh my gosh,
I've never heard of that before. That sounds amazing.
They are apparently amazing. I have not tried them yet. I've resisted so far, but I've heard that they are absolutely incredible. So some of the towns, because we are small towns, they'll shut down like once a year. They'll shut the main street down, and they'll have like a farm to table dinner on the main streets. And that's where we get to try a lot of that really good local food and local desserts, things like that. And now I don't know if you watch Hell's Kitchen, but we have the runner-up of Hell's Kitchen season 14 here in the region. And she's actually the one who did my rehearsal dinner. And she can make a fried lemon pound cake. Yeah. It is absolutely incredible.
I've never heard that either, but it sounds wonderful.
Her name is Chef T. She's, I think she's French trained. Her family's originally from the Caribbean. She's spent some time in Atlanta and New York City, and she's now in Bristol, Virginia, getting ready to open a restaurant and doing very well. But yeah, she's amazing. on anything. I've never had anything that she's made that has been bad.
So how long have you worked for the Heart of Appalachia?
I've been with Heart of Appalachia since 2019. And I was actually the tourism director for a local, just a county prior to that.
Mhm.
So
So,
just one county.
so how do you compare working for one county to a large region that you have now?
You know, in a lot of ways, you would think this would not be the answer, but in a lot of ways, it's easier because these counties are, they often struggle with their budgets.
Mhm.
So you often wear many hats. So when I say I was tourism director, I mean that I was tourism director, I was Parks and Rec director, I was group fitness teacher. You know, I was kind of wearing a lot of hats.
Right,
And I joked to one of my friends earlier, it's like, well, how do you think I learned how to take workout clothes and dress them up? You know, I had to leave from
right,
teaching a group fitness class and go to a meeting.
right.
But you know, you often wear so many hats with one county that it's hard to be effective at any one thing. So now, you know, I'm the marketing and media director for Heart of Appalachia, and that's what I do. And you know, that's my pure focus is doing the marketing campaigns and measuring the effectiveness of them, and you know, just making those decisions as to whether we're going to do them again. And really also, you know, a lot of it's being out in the region and meeting people and talking to people and seeing what they have going on, which I really enjoy.
So it had to be difficult. You started in 2019, then COVID hit.
COVID
How were
hit.
you how were you marketing an area, especially in the beginning? I mean, later on, the outdoors was where everything was at because that's what everybody was doing. But what challenge did you have with the COVID when it hit?
It was a challenge. I think in a lot of ways we turned it into a positive. The funny thing was, when COVID first started being talked about on the news, we were in the trade show circuit.
Okay.
So we were like, you know, every week or every other week, we were somewhere different. And it's like, as soon as we would leave this one city and move and come back home or move on to the next one, COVID would hit, you know, the one we just left. And it's like, oh, we're staying just ahead of it. Well, it caught up with us in Washington, D.C. You know, we're sitting at breakfast one morning and it's like, you know, the first case of COVID has just hit Washington, D.C. And
Right.
it's like, you start looking at your forks and you know, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And, you know, trade show that Saturday was good. On Sunday, it was almost like crickets. You know, the cruise
Really.
industry was going around. They were almost like trying
Yeah.
to pay you to go on cruises.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we're kind of in trouble here. But fortunately, that was our last one of the season. So we came back, you know, we needed to revamp our website. We needed to revamp our print materials. And so we really dug in and started working on those things. And you know, as far as my marketing, I almost pivoted to be more like a chamber of commerce. You know, I was trying to support the
Hmm.
local businesses, and I had news slots that twice a month, you know, with regional news outlets. And I would just, you know, feature, you know, like Chef T that I was just talking about. She was running a restaurant in one of our towns at the time.
Hmm.
And of course, COVID did that in, but she was fighting for her life.
Right.
And she was delivering, she was doing carry out orders. You know, she was delivering from St. Paul, Virginia to Blacksburg, which is 2 hours. She was
Oh,
delivering
wow.
that far
Okay.
out. Yeah, so she was fighting for her life, and I, you know, I would get her news spots to talk about what she was doing to, you know,
Hmm.
survive COVID, and we were just really looking to see what we could do to support those local businesses in our hometowns rather than marketing to the visitors at that point in time.
Right. So for 2023, what's the pitch this coming year? What's the marketing slogan for this coming year?
Well, we're still working on that right now. And I actually have a marketing committee meeting coming up next week. And our board of directors are our stakeholders, which are regional DMOs, which are our tourism directors from each of our
Okay.
counties. They weigh in heavily on what we do with our marketing. And you know, they all have a bit of a say in it. So we're having the big marketing committee meeting next week. And you know, one of the things we're talking about, one of the big things we're doing is, and I'm hoping we'll do this, is we sponsor and work with Low Car TV, which airs on Motor Trend.
Yes.
And we work with Sam Madavi, who does Sam's Garage. So Sam's Garage, I think, airs on Saturday mornings and maybe Low Car on Sunday mornings. And Sam is going to, he's pitched to us that he's wanting to build a car throughout his season 10. And that car's purpose will be to bring up and drive on the Appalachian back roads.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's going to be building a really cool car. And, my husband and I have a Class B camper van that we love, and he's wanting to feature it on the show and talk about, what we do and what we enjoy doing in the van and where we enjoy camping in the region. And so that's one of the biggest marketing projects we'll probably have for the upcoming year. But, trade shows have not really come back so much. I think we're probably going to take a year off from some of those. And really just, our print material is always in need of revamping. So we have a lot of work ahead of us in the coming months.
Do you feel the trade shows are as beneficial as they were, especially now because the internet has become so popular and people, when they want to go somewhere, they look for it?
Well, I said not right now. I think, so we used to do travel and adventure shows.
Okay.
And those are very diverse. You have a crowd that has disposable income. They're looking for somewhere to travel. And, we were kind of competing with the Bahamas and Belize and Costa Rica. And that's a little hard to compete with. Now the motorcycle shows, because they're very targeted, I think they do a lot better. And actually, I've never actually gone to a trade show as a consumer. So my husband and I, in September, ahead of buying this van, because we just bought it 2 weeks ago, we went to the big RV show in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
It's the largest RV show in the U.S., maybe the world. I don't know. It was huge. But, so as a consumer going into the trade show, I found it very, very informational.
Okay.
And so it was good for me to kind of get that perspective, to be the consumer rather than the exhibitor.
I understand. So now you know what the consumer is looking for when you exhibit. So that's interesting. That really is, that now you can see it on both sides of the issue. So Kim, what is the one thing that you want my audience to take with them today after watching or listening to this?
I just want them to give us a chance. There's a lot of stereotypes about the Appalachian Mountains and the people who live there. I want to quote Larry Davidson from Back of the Dragon. Is like, we're not all carrying a jug of moonshine around, and so I'm a bourbon drinker myself. So I don't.
So am I. I gotcha. So am I.
So, just give us a chance. One of the things that really warmed my heart working the booth at Blue Highway Fest was how astounded the people were from out of town at the friendliness of the region. It's like, I cannot believe how friendly the people are. They're just so nice. And it's like, that's who we are, and we get stereotypes a lot, and we get talked about a lot. And sometimes that's our own fault. Sometimes, people do things they shouldn't do. And it's kind of our own fault as a region. But overall, I don't think you'll find an area that has friendlier people. And just give us a chance. Come visit, get out of the crowds, bring your families, enjoy the outdoors.
And if you do go, you have to learn how to pronounce it right?
You have to pronounce it right.
Appalachian Mountains is what it is, but we call it the Appalachian Mountains.
We actually have a T-shirt. One of the local breweries has a T-shirt that sounds it out on the T-shirt.
Oh, really? I need to get that. I really do.
You do. As long as you don't read it backwards in a mirror.
that would probably be interesting to do, depending on how much you drank. Kim, thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna get down there hopefully this coming summer and look into it. And if and when I do, I'm going to look you up. So I really appreciate you taking time to talk about it. Again, I will post the website, which is heartofappalachia.com. And that way people can find out what's going on in the area and everything that you guys are doing for them. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
So
Thank
again,
you.
thank you very much.
All right. Have a great evening.
Hey, a big thank you goes out to Kim Smith for joining us today. Really enjoyed talking about that portion of Virginia because you only hear about the larger areas like Richmond, Williamsburg, Virginia Beach. And now you heard about the Heart of Appalachia, and you can find out more information by going to heartofappalachia.com. So Kim, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that are interested in taking a look at the region, I'll put all those links in the description. And you guys, thank you again for being a part of the program today. And we'll talk to you next time here on the Bill Alexander Show.
Thank you for listening to The Bill Alexander Show. The Bill Alexander Show is a $1 Million Baby production. For more information, go to thebillalexandershow.com.